intentionally did not go to the task force meeting and intentionally left it to the staff, because really Randy has been running that. It's his to run. It's Mr. Reinhardt's to kind of to administrate. And so the task force has complete autonomy to find its findings and report back. So I want to be very careful to not be seeming like I'm stepping on that process. And so I'm very pleased in that what I heard was it sounded like everybody was open-minded, which is what I would ask for everybody. I would ask for whether, I think that's one of the key things I would ask for us as a people, whether you're talking about the Canton Street Promenade or you're talking about any issue, is that you always have the ability to sit down and listen to one another. And I think it's so easy in our contemporary culture to shut one another down when we disagree with one another. And I really would ask, and I'd ask my fellow residents, and we've made some attempts, and we'll keep making those attempts, because I know that some of those folks are legitimately scared. Some of the folks are against the Canton Promenade, they're scared. And I respect that. I don't want to, that's why the whole process, we slowed it down. I think, I may have said this last time, there was the political votes, and there was a will among the council to move forward. And we talked about it, and I said, the best thing for this city is to not do blunt force trauma. This city needs healing. We need to show leadership by continuing to engage. Whether we have the political will or clout to pull it off, that's not how, I want people to be bought into it. And if they don't buy into it, then let's have a credible, engaged conversation. And that's why I'm really happy about this task force. Because it looks like to me, from what I understand, all 7 people have an objective perspective. Nobody says, I'm for it. Nobody says, I'm against it. That's all I can't ask for any more than that. Like a true process where people are actually going to go through the issues and say, hey, this may work, but you know what? That doesn't work. I'm very hopeful and optimistic about that. And I would ask my fellow Roswell residents and fellow Roswell businesses to give them an opportunity, give them space, be good to one another during this process. I know it's hard when you say trust in the public place. Trust the process. Trust these people. Trust that we're going to take their findings. Councilmember Hills is here with me. That there's no blunt force trauma going on. And I would say in reverse, don't blunt force trauma your fellow residents or businesses. Be kind, even if you disagree. And you've probably heard me say this before, and I'm always quick to admit my failures, which are many. But I will say on this particular piece, this really was and this is why we use trial. So we never said, look, this is the permanent, we're going to put in major infrastructure. We said this is a trial ideal, a trial plan. There was a plan presented by our city administrator and his team, and I feel I have a great deal of confidence because in the 18 months I've been here, the plans that I have gotten from my colleagues on the city staff and talent have been pretty darn good. And they're not perfect, and sometimes, but no plan is perfect. And one of the things that I really feel convicted on, that when we got elected, that it was our mission to take things and make things happen. Because I felt like Roswell had suffered from paralysis by analysis. Literally, when we went our second month to Greenville, South Carolina, and we literally took 120 plans. And there was a bunch of great plans in this city, like really well thought out. The problem was there was not the political will to move on those plans. And I'll give you an example. The River Master Plan, done in 2016, really well done. And by the way, to address the entire piece, we are planning the entire piece. For example, I think Director Leatherman will talk a little bit about, there's lots of pieces. The Canton Street Promenade is just a piece. It's just a small piece of a larger equation. From my perspective, it's not just Canton Street, it's downtown. When we came into office, we talked about 4 economic corridors, and one of them was basically from the river all the way up Highway 9 to 92. To Hooker Ridge. That was one of the corridors that we talked about, the economic corridors that we talked about. And so that's been framing, and that framed a lot of our work in our economic surveillance last year. We are now in phase 2 of that. And so yes, it does. There have been a lot of plans in the city. I felt like it's been our job is to move on some of those plans, and not everything, in my experience, Adrian, has to be 100% zeroed out with absolute finality, because in my experience is we did that in Roswell and we never took action. And I felt like we were compelled to take action. So, but to those folks who say, look, that plan's not perfect, well, it was a trial. And that was one of the things, I would use that word. Remember, it was a trial. And it was a trial for a very short period of time. That's how it was put in there. It wasn't like, hey, this is the current, we're going to put in $3 million of infrastructure. This is what's going to happen. You want to say. And I said to the folks early on, if it doesn't work, we will abort. We're not here to hurt you. Like, if you feel pain, it hurts your businesses, we will abort that. We said that in the beginning, and we're still that same page.
So, Mr. Mayor, these businesses have said that whenever Canton Street closes, they do feel pain. So why continue to move forward with it, and what's the rush here to get this done really in 30 days?
You know, Mike, I asked that question last year. So it's funny, we proposed a farmer's market. And so we brought in some Canton Street businesses, and they were mixed, by the way. Some were for, some were against, some were more vocal, kind of like this process. And in that process, I listened to the ones that were vocal, and they said, Alive in Roswell hurts my business. I said, didn't know that. I didn't know Alive in Roswell hurts your business. By the way, as a new mayor, been in here 11 months, can you do me a favor? Can you help give me some data to show that it hurts your business? Because I'm not aware of that, and the last thing I want to do is hurt your business. I didn't get any data. I've said that to him since then. I've said that to him in person, in private, and in public. But that's okay. I mean, our job is not to hurt our businesses. Our job is to help our businesses. Our job is to improve the quality of life. And I will tell you that I think that, obviously this story has gotten a lot of press coverage, and it's got a lot of press coverage because there are some businesses. I think some people are legitimately fearful and scared that it's going to hurt their business, and I honor that. Like I said, this is not a blunt force trauma piece. That doesn't mean that they're right? Just because they say, hey, I'm fearful it's going to hurt my business, doesn't mean that they're necessarily right about that. And that's why I would go back to, are you open to having a discussion? Because it's our belief, it's my belief, I should say, that I think it could be hugely impactful in a positive way on their business, or I wouldn't be pursuing it. If I thought this was an even-Steven equation, Mike, I wouldn't be pursuing this. But that's why we put it in the hands of a task force. Took it out of my hands, put it in the 4 business owners' hands, 2 Canton Street residents and 1 at-large residents, and say, hey, you guys look at this and see if this makes sense, or see if there's too many problems. Like, let's don't move forward on it. But to Adrian's question, there are a lot of other pieces of the equation that you're going to see us unfolding over the next 6 months on different parts of the equation about a lot of economic redevelopment that's going to happen in this city.
But is 1 meeting a week over the next 4 weeks enough time for them to do the due diligence that you think they need to do?
I think that they will make that determination. If they come back to us, Mike, and say, look, we need more time, they'll come back and say, hey, to the city administrator and to the COO, hey, can we get more time? And it's my opinion, I cannot speak for the council, I don't think that's a big issue.
You don't think it's a big issue that they're going to need more time, or you don't think it's going to be an issue to extend it?
I don't think it's an issue to extend it. But again, I can't speak for the council, I can just speak for me. Like, the matter is not like, Randy set it up, he said 45 days. Randy's administrating it. And I think, practically speaking, they come back and said, look, can we have some more time? I'm of the opinion nobody's going to say, well, heck no, you don't get any more time. We need an answer now. No, it's not the effect. It's not the intent.
Right now we have traffic counts. They are primarily weekday peak hour counts that show your volumes, peak hour movements. The trial closure would probably be on a weekend. So we did gather some weekend counts, just preliminary counts, but we don't have the actual turn movements or the peak hours for the evening, or the surrounding, or the surrounding network of system, because the traffic will be lighter throughout the system, but in this particular area, it would be very similar to a weekday event. But it would take a few months to actually gather.
Do you feel like in your official capacity, having that data in front of the task force would be germane to the subject that they're making a recommendation about?
I think we could make some assumptions that would help them in the interim, in the meantime, but I think ultimately probably a traffic study would help the overall process.
But it's safe to say it cannot be completed by August 25th.
I think we can have some results that would be adequate to help make a decision, over the course of the 45 days, yes.
Do you have any concerns just anecdotally about what could happen based on what you see when Alive in Roswell happens in terms of traffic counts? I know it's a Thursday, it's a different day. But
It's a lot different day. It's at 5 o'clock on a Thursday, which the peak hour, people commuting. On the weekend, you don't have the commuting traffic, which will be a better scenario than on a weekend closure. So I do feel confident in that.
We want more livable, walkable areas. Most communities do. This is not a surprise. This is not like, oh, we're going to throw a walkable area in the middle of a very cool historic area. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Like, that's a pretty logical ideal to make it more attractive to people wanting to be there, improving the quality of life, and having more destination traffic for businesses. It's not like it's just out there. It's not like there's not numerous examples of that working throughout the United States and throughout the world. And I think a lot of people know that. I think the opposition to this is I think there is some fear, hey, this is going to hurt my business. But I will tell you, going back to the farmers market, it's like they said, hey, we're against the farmers market. And so we stopped the farmers market. Right? We didn't put the farmers market in. I don't know that we necessarily did the right thing for the city in that instance, but we listened to those businesses. I'm not so sure they were right about that, to be quite honest with you, but we listened to the businesses. This piece is, the Canton Street Promenade is just one piece of many pieces that are going to happen. And one of those pieces is, you probably have, you guys parked here outside, you parked on both sides. If you parked here 2 months ago, you probably noticed you couldn't park very close to the building, or if you did, the parking was full. You probably noticed that parking is wide open now. It's just one of many steps of activating the downtown area. Just not Canton Street, but the downtown area.
The task force comes back and they give you the data, the raw data, they
Yes.
give you the recommendation. What is the process after that in terms of the council deliberations? How quickly after the final meeting would you expect to have some kind of answer?
I don't have a specific answer to that, so anything I would say would be speculative. The first part was get the task force going, get the task force assembled, and let them do their thing. And then based upon that, they'll report back formally to the mayor and council, and the mayor and council will deliberate on that. Last week, you probably saw the city of Roswell delivered 100 new parking spaces last week. So 100 new parking spaces were delivered last week by the city of Roswell for our business traffic and residents. That's one thing. The second thing is that we are working on a variety of parking projects. The bond is one of them. I will say, and I would say this to some of the folks who've been up about the parking, is, hey, for 20 years the city talked about parking. In 11 months, this senior leadership team, this city council delivered and brought a parking bond, like really delivered. And we're in due diligence, serious due diligence, on a host of solutions for parking garages. But I think that for me is a red herring, because, and the reason I say that, Adrian, is I'm going to tell you the naked truth. Parking will never be solved if we do our job right in the city of Roswell, because we're going to continue to be more and more of a destination place. We're going to continue to have more traffic coming who want to do business in the city of Roswell downtown corridor. It's like 10 years from now, we could have 3 parking garages, and people are going to say, there's not enough parking. And they're going to be right. And so there's not enough parking now, but if you notice, like on Live in Roswell on Thursday, and it's crazy here, the vast majority of audience finds a place to park. That's one of the reasons we activated this corridor. Like literally, we put the burden on our city employees who are used to parking in the side and put them in the middle section. Why? Because we could open up the parking here on the side of the building and activate it. And people say, well, it's too far to walk. Well, Mr. Leatherman's got a very aggressive plan on addressing that. And you've probably noticed if you walk down there, we've already changed the landscaping dramatically over there, and we'll continue to make it more user-friendly.
So last question on the
Yes,
park
sir.
deck. You said you're doing due diligence on that now. Where is that in the process? Because people have been asking, hey, we voted for this bond referendum, where's this park deck? What do you want them to know?
It is, we are moving at rapid speed.
And what does that mean?
It means we're moving at rapid speed.
Do you have a location picked out?
We have many locations that are there in consideration.